And that's what really matters. Well, it's not everything that matters, but it's how you make your living, right? Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for being here, Jesse. It's awesome. Well, I don't know yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to be saying, so I don't know if it's awesome yet. But we'll try to at least.
To be honest, it could be a dumpster fire. We'll see where it goes. So generally, you're a business guy, and I don't want to get too crazy and stuff, but I have a question of the week that I ask everybody that comes on. And this week, the question is, have you ever seen a ghost?
No.
Well, that's lame.
I had to think about it because, no, I haven't. But you know what? I had a dream once where it felt so real in terms of being possessed by a ghost. It was just like, it felt so real. It was crazy. I was literally having cold sweats afterwards.
I've had a similar dream. That's kind of why the question gets asked. Anyway, so Patrick, you are a business guy, influence guy, and a marketing guy. Where do you want to start with what you do? Where do you want to go with this interview? I'm going to give you the reins and let you talk about whatever you want.
Awesome. Well, how about we start at the beginning of me getting started in business at 21? Why? I started my first business at 21, as I said. And by the way, if people are detecting a little bit of a weird accent, it's because I'm from Denmark. I live in the UK right now. And went bankrupt really, really quickly and started to try to figure out what in the world went wrong, because I thought, hey, I'm a smart guy. I should be able to crack this business thing. But it turned out it had more to do with having an idea. I see that mistake being made today by a lot of startups. They think it's all about the idea. There's two problems in that, actually. Some people, they never get started in business because they think they have to have a great idea. And then there's the people that they get into business because they have an idea they think is great, and that the idea is good enough to be successful just based on the idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I had that belief. I went bankrupt really quickly. Started to study what went wrong, figured out, look, it's all about communication skills. It's all about understanding sales and marketing, understanding psychology of how to help people making decisions, right? So I started to study that like crazy, and I just became obsessed with it. I fell in love with it. I was studying it all the time. I found it so interesting that I thought, hey, if this is something that I do all the time anyway, why not turn it into a business? And that's what I did.
That's awesome. You talk about how an idea isn't necessarily a good idea, if that makes sense. Basically, from what you just said, there has to be the marketing behind it. So where does a person even get started with that? Because as most business owners start out as creatives, right? They start out with an idea that they think is going to go into the world. For instance, I started out as a stage hypnotist. That was my first business, and that's what I've been doing for 15 years. Yeah, people give me that look that you just gave all the time. So what was, for me, the first step was going in and talking to people. What's the first step for everybody else that wants to actually start creating a business?
Well, lots of people ask me, well, if there was anything I could do over, what would it be? What would it be? And I would say I wouldn't start that business at the point where I started it. I would go out and get a sales job for 1 to 2 years, and then I would get an advertising job for 1 to 2 years, and then I would go into business. So get some solid understanding about marketing, right? And if sales, like if you really, really, really hate sales, you're so afraid of it, you have to learn marketing. You either have to be good at one of them. If you don't understand or at least to some degree master one of them, you just don't have any chance of succeeding in business. Unless you have such a great idea that you're able to get funds, like you get some investors to put some serious money behind it, so you can go out and hire great marketers and salespeople. But where I would start is I would start reading books about copywriting, because for a small business, see, there's a big problem with startups. They have this misperception about what marketing really is about, and understand why that error happens. And it's because practically all the marketing you see around you today is done by big business. So obviously, if all the marketing you see around you is a specific type or kind, then you come to that conclusion that, well, that's how marketing is supposed to be. The problem is that marketing for big business and small business is dramatically different, like dramatically different. So marketing for a small business has to be directed much more to a kind of a selling kind of marketing where you get a sales, you generate a lead really quickly, generate trust with them, create trust with them really quickly, and then turn that into a sale. So you generate the revenue quickly, so you can go back and put more money into marketing. You can't survive with branding type marketing because that takes forever to work, right?
Yeah.
So the best place for you to start is, in my opinion, to learn copywriting because that's the fastest way of understanding how to generate a lead and turn it into a sale.
Now, you talk about copywriting. A lot of people hear that word and they think it's a dirty word, right? It's, oh, I'm trying to manipulate people into buying my stuff. When it's really not. It's about giving them an informed decision on what they're actually getting, correct?
Sure. Well, in some ways, it is manipulating, but I don't have a negative connotation towards or negative opinion around manipulation because we all manipulate every single day. We just some of us do it better than others, right? And if you look up the definition of manipulation, that actually does not have a negative connotation. A chiropractor manipulates your spine if it's out of balance and manipulates it so it goes back into balance again. There's nothing bad about that. What makes manipulation bad or good is the intention behind it.
Okay.
So of course, if you're manipulating people with the only intention of you just making sales and you don't really care about your customers, well, it's bad. If you're manipulating somebody who's blind and in a car approaching a cliff and about to run over that cliff, and you manipulate them to help them and save them, well, then manipulation is good, in my opinion.
That's good.
Yeah.
You built now the number 2 network marketing group. Is
No,
that correct?
no, the second biggest business meetup group in the world.
Okay. Okay. So the business meetup group. A
Yeah.
lot of people, where you're in London, correct? So you guys have
Yeah.
the ability to do that. A lot of people in the world don't. They live in places like I do where business meetup groups don't exist. The closest one to me is actually 2 hours away, which sounds crazy, right? But it's 200 kilometers away. So for people like me who are in non-urban areas, how would you
Sure.
suggest they would go about becoming part of any meetup group?
Sure. How big is the town that you're in?
2,500 people total.
Okay.
I'm tiny.
That is fair. That is fairly. But where and you have the nearest bigger town is 2 hours.
Nearest city is 2 hours. Yeah, closest
Okay.
big town, 25,000 people, is an hour and a half.
Okay.
I live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can relate to that because I grew up in a town with about 500 people.
Yeah.
So yours is like that's a big town. Actually, I would say it's probably big enough to start a meetup group yourself.
Okay.
I certainly wouldn't sit around and waiting for somebody else to do it. And see, it's not really. I mean, I'm lucky because I was hopeless at making sales in the beginning, so I needed the credibility to start generating that. Now I've learned to make sales actually, but I was really bad at that in the beginning. But if you're good at making sales, you don't need thousands and thousands of followers. If you create a small meetup group with 10 or 15 people, that's more than enough to get you started. It's not about how many people, and that's one of the biggest mistakes I think in today, in the biggest errors in perception. That people think, oh, I need to have tens of thousands of people to follow me to create this brand. No, you need to be good at making a sale. You need to be good at creating a connection to one person. If you're good at creating a connection to one person, you could do it with 5, and then you could do it with 10. And then in there, if you can really create trust, you can make sales enough that you have money to start scaling that. So I would just start building really strong relationship instead of thinking about hundreds of thousands. Start building strong relationships. And I'll tell you, I wish I'd done that many years ago. I started doing that last year. I basically decided to start something called VIP dinners, which was the most successful of our members that I chose to have a very small network with, and we were literally 9-10 people meeting at a time, and that turned out to be one of the best things I've ever done. And so there's power in those small, intimate meetups. And that's honestly where I would start. And you don't need a meetup of thousands and thousands of people.
That makes sense.
Okay.
As so, when you're talking about these meetups, I'm assuming that you're not only selling to the people who are there a little bit, right? But you're also trying to get them to help you generate leads and stuff like that. You're kind of a business networking group, correct? So
Sure.
so they help you if they know somebody that needs. There's an architect in the group, and he needs copywriting done. He'll come to you and get stuff done. Or if there's a baker in the group or whatever, and they need architectural done, they'll come to the architect. And
Yeah.
What happens is it comes from the network that they have as well, right? That if they know somebody that
Exactly.
needs something, sorry if I just made real loud sound. When you do this, how's the best way to serve people at a business meetup like that? How's really the best way to serve them?
That's a super awesome question, because the most people that go to networking events, they don't even think that way, right? And actually, to get anything out of networking, you have to think that way. How can I serve? Most people think, how can I sell? Right? They're really so short-sighted. They go to a networking event and they think, I want to pitch this, and I'm looking for people to buy from me. And then when that didn't work, which is doomed to do, like it's just doomed to fail, they go to another networking event, another group, and they do the same thing. And then they do that 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and then they say, "Oh, networking doesn't work." Now, it's not because networking doesn't work; it's because you approached it from the wrong perspective. So the right perspective is to also see the value in one good connection, right? Because again, even if you have, let's say you have 27,000 members, and then honestly, those 10 people that I started networking with closely have led to more business than the 27,000, right? Because I started to shift my focus on building deep relationships. So it's not about how many people you have in a network. It's also about who do they know, right? So how you serve people best is actually by starting to ask that question and thinking in those terms. How can I serve this person best? And one of the things that is really, really astounding, that I think that most people don't get, is that we are all looking for the same in some ways, right? There's some things about us where we're completely the same. We all want to feel significant. We all want to feel important. We all want to feel valued. We want to feel appreciated. We want to feel that we are bringing value to the world. And so if we know that people have all those needs, and actually they're actually mostly unfulfilled, and that's the really interesting thing. So marketing sales is about finding needs and filling them. So these needs of feeling important, appreciated, loved, special, and so on and so on, they're almost unfulfilled for every single person on the planet. Now, you can go in and fulfill that need without any cost whatsoever. And so the first thing that I do is I listen intently. First of all, I have an attitude of I wanted to serve. Okay. So the first thing I listen to is, what are they about? Who are they really? I'm not trying to, from the beginning, think, what can I do to serve this person? I'm listening to what they need, who they are, and so on and so on. And then I find things that I can honestly praise them about, like how amazing they are at this, or how special they are, or finding some ways to show them that what they're doing is important. Does that make sense?
That does. You're giving them acknowledgement for their work, right?
Yeah. And I have no idea how powerful it is if you do it the right way. I mean, it's if you do it genuinely, it's tremendously powerful.
One of the things I try to do with the people that I work with, clients specifically, I work with a lot of fairs, if that makes sense, like festivals, for my hypnosis show. And one of the things I try to do is I go to the office and I know exactly how hard they work, and I will help them with their day. The day I arrive, I'm their servant for the day. Other than the show, if they have something going wrong, I try to go help fix it, because I know that they have 3 days where it's absolutely insane, and I try to be their champion and understand and appreciate what they do, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
absolutely brilliant.
when you are, to be honest, I've lost my complete train of thought.
I do that all the time, dude.
So what you do,
If you want me to go on, you can regain your train of thought. I have a really, really good tip
go for it.
on how to serve people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's more like an attitude, actually. And then when I learned this, and this was only last year, it kind of blew my mind that I never thought this way before. And so I read this question in a book, and it was basically, if every single person that you interacted with went on YouTube and posted a review of you and that interaction you had with them, for that to stay on YouTube forever, how would that change the way that you interacted with them?
A lot.
And I was like, whoa, that's really deep. And I thought about it, and it was like, you know what? That's actually the way that I behave and the way that I teach my crew to behave at the events. I would say we rate extremely high, and people will go and give us great reviews, which they do. But outside of the events, I looked at myself as like, you know what? I don't really have that attitude of like really giving, like really making an impact and giving on every single interaction with every single person I meet. And if they're good to go and give reviews of me on YouTube, they would probably be pretty good, but not that great, not outstanding, just like kind of average. And I just wasn't happy with that, right? So that shifted my attitude towards like really just trying to focus and remember that every single person, they want to feel special, and they have struggles, they have frustrations, they have fears, they have dreams and desires, and you can, for a brief moment at least, help them a little bit with that, alleviate their pains, alleviate their fears and frustrations, and maybe in that process actually finding a way to serve them even deeper and be paid for it.
That's important. You said serve them deeper and be paid for it. That's an important aspect of this. You can help people and help people and help people and help people, but eventually it does have to come back to you, right? And I think that a lot of people don't understand that it does. It really does. When you're helping people make the right decisions for themselves, or you're just helping them in general, that one good connection can lead to, well, not financial freedom, but it can definitely lead to paying rent for the month, or it can lead to whatever else, right? When you're talking to your students, because you run a coaching stuff as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
When you talk to them, when it comes to connecting with people and really making a difference in not only their business, but in other people's lives as well, what's the number one thing that you say to them to start having that effect with people?
Well, telling my story, because sometimes it can be really hard to believe that when you start changing your attitude to be like much more giving and putting time into people, to believe that they actually will come back at some point. They have to have that belief, because otherwise they'll keep on being stuck in this like now kind of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get something now. So just telling my story of like multiple stories of how things has come back to me. But also that the first thing I want them to learn is how to listen in the right way. Okay. There are actually 10 mistakes people make in listening. And if you listen with the right attitude, it really is magical. And it'll quickly give them results, not necessarily monetary results, but it will quickly give them positive feedback in the way people respond to them, that they will be encouraged enough to continue to do it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Because they'll quickly see results, right? So if you ask deep questions and really listen like you care, like you really care, then people will respond incredibly to you.
Okay. There's a lot to think about there, because I understand where the fear comes from on their part, because you're by helping others, you become vulnerable yourself, right? if that makes sense.
Correct.
By giving of yourself, you're vulnerable. So how do you get past
Yeah.
being vulnerable?
Well, it is a leap of faith. It really is. And that's something, again, I just try to give them that faith by my own results and the results of my other students and so on. And then push them, inspire them to just take that little first step. But I'll tell you, there's actually proven, it's proven scientifically, if you will, that being vulnerable is super powerful. Have you heard about Art Aaron's 36 questions?
I think I have. I'll be honest. My
Okay.
brain is 400 places.
Okay. So there was this guy called Art Aaron, and he basically coupled strangers with each other to ask to ask and answer 36 questions and take turns. Like, so, I would ask you one question and you would answer, and you would ask me the same question back, and so on and so on. And the whole thing took about 45 minutes. After that, they were being asked a series of questions around how they found it and so on. And one of them was, how close do you feel to your partner now? 30% of them, and bear in mind, these were people that have never met each other before. 30% of them said that they felt closer to that person that they just met than they did their intimate partner. Right?
From 30 questions.
So, yeah, in 45 minutes, 36 questions in 45 minutes. And I've started to implement some of these questions in our networking events, and we found it to be absolutely magical, like completely mind-blowing, how quickly we get people to break the ice, to become more real, and to actually become more vulnerable. Because what happens is that the way that we actually build relationships deeper and deeper naturally is by having the courage to reveal something about ourselves that's a little bit personal.
Yep.
Right? And if that's met with openness and kindness or interest of positive response, we will have the courage to reveal a little bit more. And then the other person also needs to reveal something a little bit about themselves. Right? Show more of who they really are, show more of their personality and so on. And it's that give and take, or give and receive, and then give back and receive. That's how relationships get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So the more we are willing to be vulnerable in the situation, the more you give the other person permission to be vulnerable, and in that process, magic happens. Now, very, very importantly, the way these 36 questions are structured is to begin with something that is relatively surface stuff. Right? And then it gets gradually deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So when you get to the end, they're very, very personal questions, like very personal questions. You couldn't do that right off the bat. Like if you asked a very deep and personal questions, or even if you revealed something about yourself that is like deeply personal, people they'll just run screaming away because that's too scary. It's too personal right off the bat. But if you start gradually, you can actually build relatively quickly to something very personal. So so being vulnerable is super, super powerful and important. The more you can be, and again, bear in mind, gradually being more and more vulnerable, the deeper that relationship will become.
It's amazing what you're talking about here, because a lot of people never have that connection with a lot of other people, if that makes sense. Never grow those connections out, and it's really to their detriment. Over the process of my podcast here, or video, whatever you want to call this thing, I've connected with people that I never thought I would, simply because of the influence that it's creating. And people don't understand the circles that happen, if that makes sense. You talk about giving of yourself, and of course, acknowledging other people. Well, the questions that you're talking about are that acknowledgement, really, right? It's giving them release, almost, if that makes sense. It's almost a therapeutic thing to be able to have that conversation.
Very, very therapeutic. And also, when you truly listen to people like you care, you're not just listening because you're listening for clues how to close them, or for something to say that is interesting, or but you truly listen like you care. That in itself is deeply therapeutic.
That's
right?
awesome.
Because what you basically saying between the lines here is you're important. Like if I'm really listening to you like I care, is that wow, you're important, you're special to me. I care about you enough that I want to listen to you, and that is so therapeutic, and it's something people really, really deeply want. By the way, did you know this, Jesse? That approximately 40 years ago, the average American had 3.5 close friends, like confidants. Today, that number is 0.75 on average. So the whole fabric or the whole foundation for friendship is actually unraveling. We're literally, I don't know what we're doing, if it's just the internet or whether there's other factors that plays into it, but we're relating with each other in a way that we're actually not really relating anymore. Like we're destroying the way that we relate to each other. And I think the internet is largely responsible for that. And I think that it's hugely detrimental to not only our society, but to our health, because it's actually proven that having a strong social network is one of the most important factors for having physical health and mental health, of course.
Do you think it relates back to not necessarily the internet, but how the world is now, where everybody, most of America, and I'm assuming the UK and Canada, both parents have jobs. There's no sitting down for supper. There's no.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, this is 30 years ago, mind you, we would have people come over every 2 weeks or so, and we'd have a supper with 12, 15 people, and we'd discuss things. And even though I was a kid, there was another 4 kids there that were your friends. And I think that's gone now. That sounds
Totally
weird, but I don't think it's happening like it used to. Do you think that's where this really stems from? Maybe.
I think that's a huge part of it as well. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's bad here in England. It's even worse because people are living in typically most people living in very, very small homes, right? And they just, I think it's because of that they never really have a culture of inviting people over. They go to the pub, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's so many pubs in the UK, and you just don't really create like really good relationships in pubs. You just don't, right? It's not the same thing. But yeah, I completely hear you, and I think it's so important. We need to start doing that more, bring that back, real relationships where we really meet people, we're open, we're vulnerable, we do stuff together, we have fun together. We need that.
On a side note, in my town, they started a men's group. We had a lot of suicides going on in my town for a while, and they started a men's group to support men, and specifically men were killing themselves, about like 5 in a year. It was crazy. And what happened is they created this group just so people could have a connection. It wasn't a therapy thing. It wasn't anything like that. It's just a friends group because men in the West are seen to be the strong, blah, blah, blah. They're a man, that right? And the truth is, yeah, we're strong, but sometimes we need help too. And sometimes we just need to get things off our chest, especially with the way the world's going now. Before we end up, we're at 28 minutes and 30 seconds already. This went fast, and I think we got into the deepness at the end there, which is kind of nice. Patrick, where do people find you? I know down there, but any other places?
So Patrick M. Powers on Facebook or LinkedIn. I am on Instagram and Twitter, but don't bother trying to reach out because I'm almost never there. So Facebook, LinkedIn, those are my 2 homes. If you want a free sample of my new book, The New Marketing Manifesto, you go to my site, patrickmpowers.com, and grab a sample of that. And it's pretty awesome. Right. Let me just say that.
Just from the conversation we've had here today, it seems like it would be awesome. Before we end off, I always ask the same question every single interview to end the show. Today, and I do mean today, what's one thing you've done for yourself, because we're all locked up right now, to make yourself happy? And not anybody else happy, but yourself happy.
Garden.
You gardened? What did you garden? Like, what do you have out there?
Oh my God, I have like everything. I have so many flowers, and my first and only real education, if you will, is actually a gardener. So what have I been doing today? I've been removing a little bit of weed. I've been planting some small seedlings out.
What kind of seedling?
Marigolds.
Oh,
marigolds
That's my
Yeah.
favorite flower.
Oh, really? How about that?
Yeah, it was one of the defining moments with my grandmother was growing marigolds when I was like 4. It was, yeah. So there's personal stuff about me. But anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Awesome.
That's awesome. I want to thank you for being on. I'm glad that you gardened. I want you to go out there right now after the interview, if you don't have another one, and just grab some dirt and put it in your hands, because that's the best part of it, getting a little bit dirty.
Definitely.
And thank you for being on, Patrick. Everybody who's watching, we didn't get any comments on this one. No questions for you, and that's okay. But everybody who watched, thank you very much. And find Patrick at patrickempowers.com and all the other stuff he talked about. Thank you very much, Patrick. And I'm going to end the broadcast.